The Devil's Walk on Earth by Southey. From his brimstone bed at break of day, a-walking the devil is gone, to look at his snug little farm of a world, and see how his stock went on. Over hill and over the dale, and he went over the plain, and backwards and forwards he wished his tail, as a gentleman swished a cane. How when was the devil dressed? Oh, he was in his Sunday's best. His coat was red, his breeches were blue, and where was a hole where his tail come through? A lady drove by her pride, and whose face and expression he spied, for which he could have kissed her, such a pleasured, fine, clever woman was she. With an eye as wicked can be, I should take her for my aunt, thought he, if my had had a sister. He met a lord of high degree, no matter what was his name, whose face with his own when he came to compare, the expression, the look, and the air, and the character too, as it seemed to a hair, such a twain likeness there was in the pair. But this made the devil start and stare, for he thought there was surely a looking-glass there, but he could not see the thread. He saw a lawyer killing a viper, and a dunghill beside his step. Ha, quoth he, thou put'st me in mind of the story of Cain and Abel. An apothecary on a white horse rode by on this vocation, and the devil thought of his old friend, Death and the Revelation. He passed the cotton with a double-coach house, a cottage of geniality, and he owed with a grin, with his favourite sin, his pride with Abe's humility. He saw a pig rapidly down a river float, the big swan well, but every stoke was cutting his own throat, and Satan threatened his tail, a trail of adoration, for he thought of his daughter war, and her suckled babe taxation. Well enough, and south, he liked the truth, and nothing were worse for the jest, but this was only a first thought, and in his he did not rest. Another came presently into his head, and he approved, as he often been said, that second thoughts are best. For his piggy plead with wind and tide, he swayed with such celerity, and at every stoke the water dyed, with his own red blood the devil cried, Behold the Swedish nation's pride, and cotton spoon prosperity. He robbed into London leisure, where streets were dirty and dire, but where he saw brothers the prophet, and brothers the prophet saw him. He entered a thriving bookseller's shop, quoth he, we are both of one college, one must save sage like a comment once upon the tree of knowledge. As he paced through cold bar fields he looked at his solitary cell, and he was well pleased, for it gave him a hint from peering the prisons of hell. I saw a tongue tie in thief's hand, with cordial tuck and jerk. Nimby, quoth he, a man's fingers move, when his heart is in his work. He saw the same tongue uttering a man with a little expectation, and he chuckles to think of his dear slave trade, and the long debates and delays with the maid concerning its abolition. He met one of his favourite daughters by a evangelical meeting, and forgetting himself for joy at her sight, he would have accosted her outright, and given her a fatherly greeting. But she tipped him the wink, drew back, and cried, Avaunt, my name is Religion. And when she turned to the preacher, and leered like a lovesick pig, a fine man and a famous professor was he, as a great Alexander now might be, whose fame and yet rested, or wit new Scottish performer, was fiercer and warmer, the great Sir Arch Bombastus. With ropes and throws and ice and oaths, for famed his flock for frightening, and thundering with his voice, while his eyes zigzag like lightning. The Scotch phenomenon throw, with Alexander's hollow, even when most tame, he breathes more flame, when 10 fire kings could swallow. Another daughter he presently met, with music of fife and drum, and a consecrated flag, and shout of tack and rack, and might of rain and fire, which had filled the crowd aside. A formidable bill, from church he saw her came. He called her aside, and began to chide. What dost thou here? Said he. My city of Rome is the proper home, and there's work enough where for thee. O haste confessions to listen, and babes to christen, and altars and dolls to dress, and fools to coax, and sinners to hoax, and beds and bones to bless, and great pardons to sell for those who pay well, and small ones for those who pay less. My father, I boast, but this is my post, she answered, and woe well alow, but a great harlot, who is clothed in scarlet, can very well spare me now. Upon a business I am come here, that we may extend our powers. Whatever lets down this church that we hate is something in favour of ours. You will not think great Cosmo great, but I spend my time in fooling. Many irons, my sire, have wet in the fire, and I must leave none of them cooling. For you must know in state councils here are held with a beer rule in, when my liberal nations produce mischievous motions, whereas many of men of good intent, and I have a house of parliament, whom I shall find a tool in, and I have hopeful pupils too, who always were are schooling. Fine progress we make in our liberal opinions, my utilitarians, my all sort of Indians, and all sort of it Aryans, my all sort of it ists, and my pricks and my wigs, who have all sorts of twists, trained in the very way I knew. Father, you would have them go, high and low, wise and foolish, great and small, much for the leg boys all. Well pleased, well woe be aid, no very far day, when the cauldron of mischief boils, and I bring them forth in battle array, and bid them suspend their broils, that we may unite and fall on the prey, for which we all speeded our toils. Our nice boys all will give mouth at the call, hark away to the spoils. My Macs and my Quacks and my lawless Jacks, my Shields and O'Connells, my Pews, MacDonalds, my Jocksmith Sidney and all of his kidney, my Humors and my Brookhams, my Mary or Jerry, my Lord King and my Dr. Doyles. It was good news so great, but if its pleasure grew, what if joyful swish he rent, or how will his tail come through? His countenance fell for a moment. When he felt the stitches go, woe he, there's a job now, but I've made for my tailor below. Great news, cried the newsman. The devil said, stop, let me see. Great news, thought the devil. So he more of a newspaper, no news, and all for his money he had, lying varned, for he was to take an old nick. But it's some satisfaction, my lad, to know what I paid beforehand for the trick. For the 6pence I gave thee in bed, and when it came into it bad, by oracular inspiration, that's what he had seen and what he had said, the course of his visitation, would be published in the Morning Post for all this reading nation. Wherewith in second sight he saw the place and the manner and time in which this mortal story would be put in immortal rhyme. What would happen when two poets should on a time be met, the town of neither story in the shire of Somerset, where will the one who shaving would with a song begin, and the other when he had it at breakfast, and ready according join in. So each would help the other. Two heads begin better than one, and raises and concrete what in union met, and so with glee the verse flow free, and ding-dong chime of sing-song rhyme, till the whole were merrily done. And because it was said to the razor, not to the lute or harp, therefore it was that the fancy should be bright, and the wit be sharp. But when, said Satan to himself, as for said beginner, against my infinite majesty, there is no greater sin. He half put me in ugly valets, with libelous pictures for sale. He had scoffed at my hoof and my horns, and has made me free with my tail. But this Mr. Poet shall find I am not a safe subject for a while, for I'll set up a school of my own, and my poet shall set upon him. We went to a coffee-house to dine, and we had soy in his dish, having ordered some soles for his dinner, because he was fond of flat fish. We are much to my palate, thought he, and no guess a reason who can, why no bail should be better than palace, when a fish for the Parliament man. But the soles in the bill were 10 shillings. Tell your master, quoth he, what I say. If he charges and with weight for all things, he must be in a pretty good way. But mark ye, said he to the waiter, I'm a dealer myself in this line, It is business between you and me, nothing like so extensive as mine. No souls are exceedingly cheap, which you will not attempt to deny. When I see him at the fish market, I want him by and by, as he went along the strand between 3 in the morning and 4. I observed a very looking person who staggered from Paris' door, and he fought with all the world over, in vain for a man you might seek, who could drink more like a Trojan, or talk more like a Greek. Whatever then he prophesied, it would one day he met out of talk, and with wine when smitten, and with rich mouth for being heavily bitten. Very rude a Bible was he who had written the story of his walk. A pretty mistake, quoth the devil, a pretty mistake, I opine. I've put many ill thoughts in his mouth. You never put ghosts once in mine. And whoever should say it with pause, which best of all verses belong, he is an untruth-telling son, and so surely called in the song. And if seeking an ill connection with fame, anyone else should put in a claim, if his comical competition but expels poem with proof, a man trapped for such foolish ambition, with a silly ruff, shall be caught by the leg and exposed in a second edition. Now the morning air was cold for him, who was used to warm though, and yet he did not immediately wish to set out his homeward road, for he had some morning calls to make before he went back to hell. So thought I'd step into a gaming house, and it will do as well. But just before he could get to the door, a wonderful change befell. For all on a sudden, a dark place, he came upon General, burning face, and it struck him with such consternation. But home is a hurry his way did take, because he thought, by a slight mistake, trust the general conflagration.